Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Luthiers Question Time 74. This is a show where I answer your questions on guitar building. And I'm running a few minutes late, for which I apologise profusely. I couldn't find a microphone, but everything seems to be running according to plan at this stage. Okay, all right, let's pause that and have a chat. Lisa Harshberger, straight in there with her. I've never been accused of moderation before. I like it. Okay, we have got Matt Toman, Black Wraith, Creeverai, Spike's Frugal Fixer Shop, Sweet Tea Guitars, Tootem Carmen, Kevin Harvey, a bunch of the old Wolford guitars. Beth McKenna is in, says, "Evening Ben, Paul and I are ready and waiting for your dulcet tones." And then she blew a kiss in my direction. This is the very first comment, and yeah, I mean, you guys are awesome. So there we go. Fire up the tequila and let us go. So, it has been a weekend. It has been a long weekend for me here. We've got a lot going on. Still building the new workshop and all of that. And the kids are going back to school tomorrow. Finally, it's been 2 weeks of parenting. No, it's all fun and games. So, now, I am currently looking at the microphones and this does not... There we go. I'm just going to edit the levels. Okay. Anyhow, so you know how it's doing. We have got Lewis Drake says, should we start a pool for how late Bun will be? This is the first time I've been late in quite a long time. But anyway, what can you do? I apologise. This is the drill. Ask me questions, preferably about guitar building, but frankly, anything is fair game, and we'll go from there. I also need to turn my phone on silent, and okay, there we go. Mic is a little fuzzy, distorted, and loud. I think I've already fixed that, but there we go. Let me know. Okay, so here we go. Rocket Punk via Discord says, "Hey Ben, do you think doing a Shisugi barn on beech or oak with some weight relief on a guitar could result in a cool guitar?" I think Shisugi barn, i.e. burning, pre-burning the wood and then using an oil finish, etc., when done properly, almost always looks cool. Now, I don't have it currently in here anymore. We did a couple of copper-rodded guitars where the Shisugi bun was not done, it was half done, and it just looked boring. If you're gonna burn something, preferably something that you're allowed to burn. Okay, so yeah, do it properly, clear the excess off with a fine wire brush, so a suede brush for cleaning suede shoes is the sort of delicacy that we're after, and then after that you use a guitar finishing oil or boiled linseed oil, which is I think the traditional choice. It might be. I've been told that boiled linseed oil is the traditional choice, but now that I come to say it out loud, I'm not entirely sure I'm correct. And there we go. So yeah, questions, here we go. 26 likes, 88 people watching. Super chats 100% will be answered. I didn't say that at the beginning of the show. The rest of it I will spooge through as much as I possibly can, but I can't be guaranteed to see things. Also, you will notice a bunch of people with the beautiful colours by their names. Those are members in the they're YouTube members, and they get extra bits and pieces and stuff, but also their names shout out at me. And there's the first super chat of the evening from Michael Knoll. How are you, Michael? Crowning files for 16 gauge jewellery wire. I know my frets are far from standard, but I'm sure the files come in various sizes. Okay, I now need to Google 16 gauge, because that is not... 1.6 millimeters. Okay, so the standard fret crowning file that we do is the standard triangular crowning file. That is absolutely perfect for around about that size. we are about to launch a much finer file, and essentially the way that you manufacture them is the crowning file teeth dictate how big the safe edge is, and with a much finer file it works slower, but you end up with fewer scratches, and that means you've got a smaller safe edge because of the smaller teeth, etc., etc., and that could... You're talking 1.6 millimeters. The standard one should work. However, if you do want the finer one, it would be a little bit better. Drop us an email through shop@crimsonguitars.com. We finalized the last prototypes 6 or 8 weeks ago, and either we can send you one of the prototypes, or frankly they should be in production at this point. So yes, give us a shout, and we'll see what we can do. Sweet Tea Guitars, how are you doing, Todd? Good evening, Ben. He says, is soft maple suitable for a neck if reinforcements are used? I've got a line on a bunch of 8x4, or sorry, 8 quarters. That's the American way of saying 2 inches. I don't understand. I think you guys rename things just to make yourselves look cool, and I need to tell you something. It works. Yeah. He follows up by saying, I'm curious. Thank you. Soft maple is still harder than many other timbers. If you are using carbon fibre and a proper dual action stiffening, a dual action truss rod, then yes, you should be okay. It is not something that I've tried before, but yeah, with the carbon fibre in there, you should be all right. I'm going to assume that you were talking about having a rosewood or an ebony or something like that fretboard, which you mustn't discount those as part of the recipe. I would suggest that if you are using soft maple for both the fretboard and the neck, then maybe it wouldn't be necessarily a good shout. However, we use European sycamore. I don't know the particular janker hardness of European sycamore, but you can Google that, and you can Google the average janker hardness of soft maple and see how different those two are, and use that as a way to just double check yourself, or double check me. E.R. Webster says, high stress can cause almost any symptom. It's so hard on the body and mind. I don't know the context, but yes. I agree. Okay, Scotsman says, hi Ben, I was wondering if you might do a video on achieving different neck profiles with the facet method, C-shape, D-shape, V-shape, etc. That'd be pretty cool. Cheers. At some point, normally when people say, oh, could you do a video on XYZ, it's so unlikely to happen because I tend to do everything. Most of the videos I do are project-based, and doing that is very much not. However, we are in the process of preparing a full batch of different neck profile carving gauges, basically, so you can see, so that it gives you a 58 Strat or a 60s Les Paul, or what, all sorts of different things like that. And I have asked the team to work out on those gauges the fascinating faceting technique that would be required to reach that shape, and that should be laser cut onto these guides to make life easier. Now, that being said, it really is, it's super easy for you guys to figure this out yourself. I'm not even going to draw because you're not going to be able to see what I can draw here. So you draw the cross section of the piece of wood at the width that you want. Draw on the shape that you want, and if it's a V shape, you can figure out very, very easily that that's the facet. Measure in 20 millimeters from the sides. Okay, let's say 15 millimeters from each side, going down another 15 millimeters, and that creates most of your V. And all it takes is sitting down and drawing and knowing what that shape needs to be in the cross section. It's exactly the same way as creating figuring out the precise neck break angle that you need for your guitar based on where the neck is entering the body and how high the bridge is and all of that jazz. I don't necessarily care about the fact that it's almost certain to be within a gnat's chaff of 1.5 degrees or so, but I care physically. You need to have 3 millimeters here, 0 millimeters there, with 150 millimeters in between them, and that'll give you your break angle. And it's all about the physicality with me. So here we go. Now, Sweet Tea Guitars came back and says, I didn't name it, brother. I agree with you. My wood guy talks in that language, and yes, a hard, dark fretboard. So yeah, there we go. You should be okay with carbon fiber stiffening rods, preferably rectangular in cross section, i.e. with the narrow side facing up. It should be strong enough. And soft maple can be particularly pretty. The big unit is in the house. Came in with a super chat, thank you very much, and says, I've been practicing with submerging glass inlays in resin, but I'm struggling to get a clear finish. Tips? I'm using a torch to pop the bubbles. I learned the hard way that too much heat is bad. How much heat did you use? What I am picturing is molten glass, and I think that could look incredible. Okay, this requires some thought. Resin is not my strong point, in spite of the fact that I've done a few bits and pieces with it in the past, and we're currently doing a giant bog oak and gold leaf resin table at headquarters, which just for fun. Actually, that's going to be at Maker Central next week. This is what I was supposed to say. I'll get back to this question. I will not be doing a live stream on Sunday next week, or a live stream build on Monday next week, because I'm at Maker Central, and then the following week I'm at the guitar show in Birmingham. So what I'm going to have to do is actually reschedule both these live streams and potentially the live stream build for that week. I'll figure that out, but please be aware it will not be normal programming, and you'll need to just check and see what happens. I'll try and schedule these as soon as possible, probably on Tuesday. Okay, anyway, back to the question. Okay, one of the things that happens with resin when you are when you've got a fretboard or something like that, is that air bubbles actually come in from the wood itself, and you can also get contaminants. So for example, particularly waxy Iroko or something like that can contaminate the resin and make it not quite as clear. This is assuming, this is fairly general. I don't know the particular resins that you're using. So what I tend to do now is I will seal the cavity beforehand using shellac or something like that, and essentially, instead of the resin flooding into the wood and then maybe something flooding back out over the curing time, in fact probably being pulled out bodily by the exothermic reaction as the resin cures, it's sealed off, and any grain will be filled with the shellac. So before you put in your glass, seal everything off with some shellac. Okay. Other than that, I don't know. I've not used glass before. I would suggest potentially you have to clean the glass with something beforehand. The glass itself might be reacting with the resin, but that really, I don't know. I don't know. Let me know what it was when you figured it out, though. Okay. If you are just inlaying flat glass, then I wouldn't bother with the resin at all. If you can't have the glass because of the radius reach the top, then I would actually cut Perspex to match the shape. And I would just glue Perspex around the edges of the Perspex on top of the glass. And then you can radius the Perspex. It's the same basic composition as resin. It will just be just as strong or just as weak as the resin would be potentially with regards to wear and tear and all that jazz, but it's much, much, much easier to put in because you're not actually sticking it to the substrate itself. I would potentially worry about vibrating. Such a small surface, it probably wouldn't happen. If everything's glued in properly, you'd be okay. So that is something, I think Ibanez did that on one of, what's the gem that had all of the multifaceted, very, very bright inlays? I think that was done in that way. Okay. Wow, okay. Creeper, it sounds like you've had a fantastic weekend. That's incredible. Okay. There we go. So I've done those questions. That's all good. I'm here. We're good. On we go. Okay. E.R. Webster, how the devil are you? Thoughts on pre-finishing fret ends before putting the frets into the fretboard? This seems to be gaining in popularity. You can... I love the idea. I absolutely love the idea. I have yet to experiment with it. In fact, I should do a video on that. Just a sort of pros or cons kind of a thing. I think that the only issue is the way that I put a fret in is I will sort of load a little bit of tension into the fret. So as I put it in, I hit the ends in and then it squeezes out. So being absolutely precise with the radius is the name of the game here. And what that means is that the tangs will be going straight down into the fretboard. The way that I've always taught to put your frets in is to, for example, if you've got a 12-inch radius, you want to have it set at, say, 10, and then you hit the ends in, and then from the center you push the frets down. And that means that the tangs go in and then sideways underneath the fretboard, meaning that they're seated a lot more with a lot more strength. Let's fix my grammar as we go. So you would lose that unless you can work out, hey, if I've got this at a 10-inch radius, then if my fret wants to be 42 millimeters and I've got a 10-inch radius to mix my measuring systems, the fret will need to be 0.5 millimeter longer than I actually want. So it requires more thought. And for me, more thought when you're guitar building it's not great. I've already got all of this going on, all the cameras and everything. However, if you've got the system sorted out and you have all of the measurements written down and you know all of that jazz before you go in, then yeah, you can pre-finish the fret ends. What happens when you then level the fingerboard and you slip and you scratch? You're always going to have to fix it up afterwards. So I think it's more trouble than it's worth. I've talked myself around to this way of thinking. What do you guys think? Let me know in the chat. Okay. Mitchell Heron, thank you very much for this super chat. Says, hey Bun, I'm working on a neck through multi-scale with mahogany wings. Unfortunately, while chiseling the back of one of the wings, I had a substantial amount of tear out. Any tips to fix a tear out? Carve right through and get rid of it. It's one of those things. The evidence is going to be there unless you are very, very, very clever and careful, the evidence is going to be there that something happened. Whereas it depends on the guitar, but you can quite easily say, hey, yeah, I meant for this carving to be, 3mm deeper or whatever, and hide it. Another popular method is to just slap an inlay on there and accentuate that something was there, put on an inlay, and it's suddenly, oh, cool, this is something you can charge a little bit more money for. It very much depends if it's an instrument for a customer or on spec. And most people, it's not going to help. Okay, now the best way to do it is to fix using a okay. Dust and glue is what everybody's expecting me to say. So dust and glue is an option. Sand down the wood that you're using, mix that dust with glue and fill it. Do not use super glue. Super glue immediately darkens the wood massively. You want to make a very, very fuzzy, almost not wet putty out of standard white wood glue and dust, and that will get something fairly close to the wood. And I say fairly close very precisely because it will never be perfect. The very, very, very best way, and this would be fiddly as all hell, to fix anything with wood, is to take a piece of that same wood and fit it in as a direct replacement. Match the grain if at all possible, and whatever you do, don't cut a square or a circle or a geometric shape out. Maybe an oval or an elongated tear shape or something like that. And the very, very best, look up violin repairs where they're doing, it's called a patch repair. And it's generally slightly larger, but you match the grain and you've got a conical shape on the back of the piece of wood, and you sort of sand it in, and you end up, instead of having a joint where it's hard, square, hard lines going in, which will always be visible, you end up with a joint at an oblique angle, and it's much easier to hide things at that point. Now, I did a repair on a jazz guitar. I think the video probably went live 4 or 5 months ago, something like that, and I did a basic patch repair on that. It was a spruce top. I ended up using stains to match grain, etc. But the implication is that you've got lots of little bits of tear out here, and it's just not ideal. Honestly, carve it all away, make the guitar slightly thinner if necessary, if at all possible. Now, that being said, if the timber is in any way figured, if it has interesting things going on, if it's got a few knot holes in places, then accentuate the issue. Basically, I would take some knotted wood from another part of your offcuts or something like that, and I would inlay that in over the tear out and make it into a feature. And so it doesn't have to be, hey, I've got let's put a butterfly on that ass. It's something that's expected to be there. We're inlaying a mole, or something. Can I please stop talking now? Let's just stop talking now. Alrighty. I don't know. Once upon a time, Ben learned how to stop talking. Avoiding tear out, go slow. Take smaller cuts wherever possible, and don't force things. Sweet Tea Guitars coming in with another super chat. Says, knowing you decided to share the quilt sets I've sent, I've decided to send you some more. Dude. Not all quilt, but I've got some really special pieces in mind for this round. It's what I do, man. Peace and love. Todd, you're insane, but thank you very much. I do appreciate it. So essentially, Sweet Tea Guitars sent me some quilted maple for me to use, and a set for somebody else who was in the chat, who was asking me where to find quilted maple in the UK that wasn't horrendously expensive. But the guitar that he has planned needs a top and a back set, and yeah, Todd had sent me one, so I asked if we were allowed to, and essentially we just swapped. So yeah, but I wasn't expecting that. Thank you very much. Terry Love. Yep, Terry Love has come in with a £5 super chat and preemptively agreed with me. He says, tear out, make a feature of it and call it a deliberate feature. With the second feature, I was about to drink some wipe on guitar lacquer. That would not end well. It could make for an interesting video though. Okay. Yeah. Now, I'm going to have a look and find some questions. And that wasn't the question coming through. Guitar Addicts Workshop, Tahoe Mike, Beth is in still. Louis Drake says, how do we start a... Oh no, that was the pool. I read that earlier. How rude. Okay. And this is the problem, that the chat just runs through, and I find it very difficult to actually pull out a good question. So here we go. Huh. Okay, Sweet Tea talking to Terry says, I've ordered all metric measuring devices because frankly they're easier to use. I ran a German printing press for 17 years and it's all metric, so I've been a fan of metric for years, especially in guitar building. I mean, you continue to get more and more interesting there. Okay. Alan Barnes via Discord says, have you ever tried spiral blades for your jeweler's saw? Pros, cons? I haven't. Okay. I put one in once and it just completely and totally discombobulated me. That's my new word for the evening. I've never used that in conversation ever. I am sure it is good, but the way that I work, it just freaked me out. And so personally, due to the amount of inlay that I do, due to the amount of cutting that I do with hand tools, it doesn't do it for me. Now, in a fret saw, it's a completely different thing. I really do think that it could be worth doing on a powered tool, because it saves a lot of messing around. As long as you are 100% in the space and you know exactly where you are moving things. Okay. Excuse me. George Davis says, by the way, or don't try to dry wood in your microwave. Ask me how I know. I suspect that you managed to explosively remove a lot of moisture while also creating a lot of cracks. Yes. Now you can, on a very, 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 very low temperature, low and slow, make a difference, but it's never worth the risk. I'm going to assume that this was for wood turning, because most guitar stuff is too big to fit in the average microwave oven. Okay. Terry Love has come in, and again, thanks Terry, and says, Ben, have you ever built a leather top guitar? I have not. I used to really, 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 really want to. I don't know. The desire to do that has completely left me. I think that there is definitely a place for it, but it depends on obviously the aesthetic that you're going for. And all of the leather top guitars that I've seen, or at least most of them, have had carving done into the leather, or carving, or I suppose burning maybe, but I think just carving it out. And they tend to feel a little homemade. And I paused before saying that because it's ironic, because hey, I'm promoting making stuff by home. You know, I want you guys to build things at home and absolutely go insane and do it. That's my whole thing, really. But yeah, I don't know, it just feels a little bit less precise than wood, because it's a softer material. But I'm sure that is also now, it's just down to my own issues. There is a place for it, and I think that some leathers could look incredible. Now, the other option is that we as guitar makers tend to talk about tone quite a lot, and we will shout about how thick a varnish needs to be, or thin, should I say, and how, you know, if you've got a thick, soft varnish covering a guitar, you're just going to be sucking tone out of the wood. How very dare you! And yeah, if you're putting a 2 or 3 millimeter thick chunk of leather on using contact adhesive, which is, I assume, what you would use. That's what you use to make shoes, etc. After all, yeah, you're going to be robbing tone out of that tone wood, etc. So it's very much an aesthetic choice, and yeah, if you like that aesthetic, then it's absolutely doable. It's far easier as well with a carved top instrument to get that to match the shape and the curves, etc., than it would be with a veneer, which is an absolute nightmare. That was not fun. Okay. George Davis says, I don't know what Discord is. There's a link there should be a link in the description. It's essentially the newfangled modern replacement for forums, I suppose, where people get to chat and talk and collaborate, and you've got photographs and video and voice and, you know, any number of things. It works very well, and we've got our own, and it's always got people in there posting their builds and talking about guitars and guitar making, and it's actually a really cool place. I wish I had more time to spend in it myself, to be honest. The big unit says the glass is curved, unfortunately, and I'm assuming that means it's curved and does not actually match the curve of the fretboard. Continuous experimentation is all I can say. Clean the glass before it goes in. Do not get it dirty. Do not touch it with your fingers if you can avoid that. And yeah, you have to keep on. Excuse me. Keep on trying. This is the thing, I tell you. I don't yawn until I'm absolutely wiped out or incredibly relaxed, and yeah, apparently live streaming to 127 odd people is very relaxing to me. Okay. Okie dokie. Questions. Rob Tootle is shouting at Sweet Tea, saying, "You reddle, you're going metric," and then putting in some smiley faces. It is most certainly easier to use, especially if you're mathematically challenged, as am I. Bonehead Guitar says, "Do you use epoxy as a grain filler, and if so, is there a specific one you'd recommend?" I do not. I've done it once, and it felt like huge amounts more work. The guitars that I build here at home, I either do not use grain filler at all, or I will use guitar finishing oil if that's going to be the final finish, and I rub the oil in using 1500 grit to 2000 grit wet and dry paper. It creates a slurry of the dust underneath, that fills the grain, and then you wipe off the excess across the grain, and voila, your grain is filled. Another alternative, if you're not using guitar finishing oil as your finish of choice, in which case, how dare you? In which case, I will use shellac and basically do the same thing. Fine sand the guitar, flood it with shellac, fine sand it off, put another coat of shellac on, sand that off, and be done for the most part, unless you've got particularly porous wood, in which case pumice is actually an option, but not. I am just saying that because that's what I've heard. I've not tried it, not in a long time. Okay. Janker hardness. This is from Sweet Tea. This is very interesting. European sycamore 770, soft maple 950, hard maple 1450. So yes, soft maple, you're absolutely fine. We use sycamore for guitar building, for necks, all the time, and it is much softer than soft maple. So there's another one of those names that aren't particularly descriptive. Thanks for letting me know. And for saving me a Google, because I was going to have to go back to that myself later. Leprechaun says, being a millwright and machinist, I will always be a fan of Imperial. 1/5 of a human hair is as accurate as I need. I don't need microns, so no use for metric. It's not about that. It's about how incredibly simple it is to work with metric, whereas there's no 1/64ths or 20,000ths or 0.0022578 and all of that nonsense. I mean, literally just saying that starts to give me anxiety. It's just, hey, this is X, and it is, you know, it's so easy. But anyway. Now, here we go. So I've got a picture here from Spike saying, what would you use on this fretboard? It's a maple fretboard, I think. Honestly, varnish of some sort is a finish. I'm thinking about staining fretboards quite a lot as well at this point, because yeah, I think that stained fretboards, it's got a bad rap because cheaper guitars tended to have fake rosewood or fake ebony that was stained, and people think, oh, that's nasty. But actually, if you've got a maple fretboard that you stain underneath the varnish, it could look incredible. PRS do it in their custom shop, so that's quite a good idea. Yeah. Okay. Rocket Punk also says, hi Ben, I bought some Douglas fir yesterday. It's faux courtesan and super resonant. A luthier friend of mine told me to make a bass, but I still wonder, what would you do with that? Honestly, it's a difficult question. I'm going off in like 15 different ways here. I want to talk about spruce and how soft that is in comparison to fir, etc. In a relative sort of a fashion. I would do whatever you most want to play, because anything that you build in it should, all being said, work out very, very well. I really need to just spend a load of time experimenting with softwoods. I really do. So yeah, I mean, a good bass would sound great, but if it's something that you're not going to play, then don't bother. If you're more a guitarist and you've always wanted we were talking about PRS just now. One of his early guitars had the sort of standard PRS shape, but it had a carved spruce top, instrument grade spruce though, and yeah, I've always, for some reason, that guitar is stuck in my head. And actually, that's probably what I would do. Come to think of it, I would make that spruce-topped PRS type hollow body. I think it was. Just checking to see if I've got the PRS book down here. No. I'm going to move a number of my books into here. We're going to be, once I build the workshop and finish insulating and all that, I'm going to be moving this live stream into the other room. And I'll be sitting at a lovely desk with books and stuff, and we can talk. It'll be cool. It will be cool. Okay. Give me questions, people. Paul Needs says, I like seeing the messages coming up on the main screen of my TV. Very useful. I cannot tell you how weird it feels knowing that I'm on people's TVs. Like, still, even after all these years, it is so strange to me. Creverai is talking to Bonehead Guitars about the grain filler. Says, I'm going to use Z-Epoxy finishing resin as a grain filler. Many luthiers use it and it seems to work perfectly with most lacquers. Okay, now, I think I completely messed up here. At Crimson, I only answered that question halfway, and I apologise. At Crimson, we actually use a spray-on grain filler that is essentially, I'm pretty sure, a polyurethane base coat, and it's full of solids. It's very, very high build, and that's how we fill grains. So at Crimson, we're not rubbing in anything or playing around with epoxies and then sanding it down. It's something through the spray gun, and yeah, you're done. I got a new lamp the other day, and yeah, I need to work on that. Okay. Casey McDermott's coming with a super chat. Thank you very much, Casey. And says, any concerns with a slightly bowed fretboard? Should I glue it to the neck before messing with fret slots? Okay, absolutely not. Slightly bowed, not an issue whatsoever. Now, for many, many years, I personally find it easier when I'm hand making a guitar to cut the fret slots and do all of that jazz once the fretboard is on the neck. You've got a larger chunk of wood, you've got places where you can conveniently clamp it down and all that. That being said, manufacturers, PRS is one of them, I'm pretty sure Gibson is as well, they will inlay, fret slot, fret, all of that stuff before the fretboard ever goes near a neck. And we have started doing that at Crimson as well for the guitars and kit guitars that we manufacture. And inevitably you will end up with some sort of bowing on the fretboard, but you should be able to, just with your fingers, push down and glue it, and it'll be absolutely fine. It is not, if you can push it down with your fingers, then there's not enough built-in tension to affect the guitar in any way, in any meaningful way, and certainly not enough to counteract carbon fibre stiffening rods and dual action truss rods, etc. Okay. Terry Love, another super chat. Thanks very much, Terry. And says, bass guitars look like they are longer than normal guitars. For a smaller player, can you build a bass for a smaller player in a small size? Absolutely. So essentially, we're talking about the body size is what I'm talking about. The body size on an average bass is longer and bigger than a standard guitar, and that is, I suppose, to bring it into just, it looks better proportionally because the neck itself is longer. Generally, so you're talking 34 to 36 inches as an average bass, and people are going to argue with me. Over the last 5 to 10 years, though, short scale basses with a 30-inch scale length are becoming far more common. Far more common. Now, there was the Gibson EB something. Gibson electric bass. That must have been what it was. And that was 30 inches, and people poo-pooed it for years. But yeah, it's being made by a lot of people right now, and is 4 to 6 inches shorter than the average bass. Your P bass is a 34-inch scale, etc. So yeah, they can be made smaller, and I've seen much shorter than that as well, with different types of strings. So yeah, you can. Okay. Paul Need says, I had a quilt 10 top PRS some years back. It was gorgeous. Yep. That's... One day I'm going to stop buying frivolous things and I'm going to start collecting guitars again. Oh, wait. Yeah. Seriously, that is one of my dream instruments, is to own and love something like that. And I think I'm going to have to do that at some point as a research experiment. Now, interestingly, PRS tends not to sell very well at auction. So you can have a £4,000 to £6,000 guitar that goes in auction, at least here, for £2,500, which is where I will be getting mine if I do. Barry Christian says he thinks Highline Guitars did a video on pre-finishing frets. I'll Google that. If I can read my writing. Okay. Zach Edison, how you doing, Zach? Says hot coffee and biscuits with sausage gravy. I have never eaten biscuits and sausages in the same meal. I think I'm missing out. Okay, good evening to you. If you are making a custom guitar for a customer, could you show that build? Also, a puzzle multiple wood pieces fretboard. You're the best. Okay. Yes, puzzle multiple wood pieces fretboard sounds like it could be either horrific or incredible. And yeah. Now, I did something like that on my Cyberpunk build. That was fun. There was multiple pieces of ebony, and I glued contrasting pieces together so it had a sort of a digital checking kind of effect, which I really liked, and I want to do that sort of thing more often. I do not build guitars that you guys don't see, or haven't at least for a long time. So every single guitar that I personally am building constantly, it's being filmed and you're watching it. So we've got the baritone, the Ukraine baritone, the bass, etc. My daughter's guitar, all of that you will see. Now, I am in the process of partially moving back into and building an incredible studio at Crimson headquarters, and while there will be many guitars that we build for customers that you won't see, or you will only see in maybe what's on the bench style videos, or we will film the process of a build and you'll just have a one build. Here's 40 minutes of a guitar coming together, and it won't be me necessarily building it, it won't be me talking about it necessarily, although never say never. It's just, here's a very cool guitar being built start to finish, CNCs, laser cutters, my team of luthiers there, and a camera or two. And yeah, I'm interested to see how interested you guys find that. Inky Guitar says, Ben, there are important things to consider when inlaying thin material, 0.5 millimeters. Honestly, it's just the obvious. It's being aware of sanding through and going too thin. And you can save money by buying the laminated mother of pearls, etc. But for every single penny that I have saved doing that, I have probably wasted as much, if not more, fixing mistakes when I've sanded through, because it's almost impossible to get absolutely right. I would potentially actually try the aforementioned, put the inlay in relatively deep and then flood it with epoxy. And then you don't run the risk of sanding through. That's probably the modern solution to that issue. Fukami's come in, said Crimson Master Build series of super edits. Gimme! Yeah, okay. It's one of the reasons why I'm moving back. Honestly, it's one of the reasons I'm moving back. I want to film more, I want to make more, and I want to personally be involved in a far greater way in what's happening at Crimson, specifically with the guitar building and tool development sides. Okay, Spike's Frugal Fixes come and says the fretboard pick was on the Sycamore one-piece bass. Ah, there we go. I did put the truss rod in the back and it worked out great, filling the gap with the same wood, so still all one piece of wood, right? It's still all one piece of wood, yeah. I think, yeah. So if you're going to go and... Traditionally, we like some contrast in what the guitar looks like. So if you think about the hand tool build, the fretboard looks normal, even though it's made out of the same wood, in much the same way as you've just done, although I cut it up into pieces beforehand. We burnt it and we've stained it, and it's got a contrast. And I think that's quite important. So yeah, I would stain it if I were you, otherwise the instrument starts to feel a little bit bland, which isn't what you're going for, I would suggest. Joe Thornhill starts the comment with Bailey's chocolates. Meanie. Hi Bun, Talitha kept missing my comment in the last stream, so next live build. 72 telly thin line with F-holes and a Bigsby and tobacco sunburst, since you've wanted one for years. Okay. I mean, I really have wanted one for years. I've only just realised that I'm about to finish the current live build series and haven't given any thought whatsoever to the next live build. Like, seriously, it's not even come up. It's not, yeah. Okay, fair enough. I've got the bass here, I've got the baritone here, both of which need to be finished. I've also got Jasmine's guitar, which hasn't quite been finished. I need to do something on that. I'm not gonna do... I don't think I'm going to do a scratch build on the next live one. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to figure that one out. Thank you very much for bringing that to mind. But yes, I think at some point I do need to build one of those. I really, really, really do. And I'm sorry that Talitha ignored you. She's a meanie. Okay. There's 150 of you here. 149. As I announce it, it drops. 147. I'm going to stop talking. Casey McDermott says, patch repair, similar concept to a scarf joint. Kind of, yeah, it's the same sort of angle, but it's entirely surrounding a repair or an issue. Now, I used to think that violin repairers were mind-blowingly cool by being able to do this, but actually Spruce, which is where you do it most, because that's more delicate and gets broken quite a lot, is actually relatively surprisingly easy to do patch repairs on. It's fairly malleable, and yeah. Anyway, is what it is. Okay, so hold on. I am... Okay, Fluid Focus says, lol, American biscuits, not English biscuits. What the hell is an American biscuit? Like, seriously, I have no idea what you guys are talking about. Okay, Casey McDermott, have fun with bath time for the kids. Zach Edison says, Explorer front, Les Paul rear guitar, cool guitar. That sounds fun. Is it a... Huh. Lisa says, Ben, what about some other team members doing a short stream while you're in Brum? No. Absolutely not. No, honestly, I'm the only person that is willing to... Okay, that's probably not actually true. It's Sunday evening, it's on the weekend, and no, I'm not going to ask employees to do this. Plus, quite frankly, I just really enjoy it. I'd rather reschedule for an evening, sort of in the middle of the week or something like that, than otherwise. So we'll see how... We'll see. Lisa says, Ben, how is the move going? Much more to do. Yes and no. So at headquarters, it's mostly there. We need to build tool racks. I need to unbox all of my tools, which I'm really looking forward to. I've had a lot of my tools there in storage for the last couple of years. In fact, a load of them over the time I went and nabbed bits and pieces, but they've been in boxes now for at least a year, so I'm not even sure what's there anymore. I'm looking forward to that greatly, and we will film the process. So we need to get all of that put together. And yeah, lights, various lights and some frames for filming. So this sort of trussing and that sort of stuff has to happen. Other than that, it really is pretty much there. I am also much further advanced on my workshop extension here. The building is up, the roof is on, the external has been painted and the guttering put on, etc. I now need to thoroughly insulate and board out the inside, so that's sort of the next big job. It's very important that the workshop is insulated and we can get a good temperature in here, and also that keeps the moisture levels relatively consistent. So yeah, we'll do that. Papa says, can rub on lacquer be used over poly filler? Yes, it can. Okay, NTO Steve says, Ben, I have a new Fender Player Strat with one fret high at one end, varnished maple neck or board. I'm scared to knock it in hard for fear of cracking the finish. Any advice? Honestly, you shouldn't crack the finish. Send it back. Very gently put pressure on it with your hammer or whatever you would knock it in with, a fret. We've got the little brass fret pulls. Put pressure on it and see if it's actually moving up and down, just with how much you can push on it with your own bodily strength. Because if that's the case, then you're going to have to put a dab of epoxy or super glue or something underneath it. And in this case, I would probably use epoxy and then clamp it down. I don't know, I've got limited experience repairing fenders. I just don't tend to get them very much. I don't do many repairs at all in the first place. But yeah, that's one of those things. However, most varnish is relatively flexible, and you shouldn't have any varnish underneath that fret. So essentially what's happened is, I think, the fret is lifted and it'll be clear underneath to whack it down or push it down. but it's a risk, and I think you're just going to have to go for it and see. Sorry. Now that being said, you can relatively easily repair or refinish just that section using, given how easily and readily available epoxy is, etc. these days. So yeah, good luck on that. Chris Lapp says, what do you think about black Limbo wood for guitar necks? Very soft, but I've got very little experience. So again, I refer you to Janker hardness. If it is harder than 770, which is European sycamore, then I would use it. Although sycamore has a particular grain, so obviously grain structure also comes into it with regards to the strength. So we've just gone over an hour for the evening. Tutum Carmen says, is making a neck out of veneers feasible? 100% feasible, yes. Go and check out Martin use veneer on some of their necks. I don't know what they call it. It's probably something markety. But basically it is. It's good quality wood. It's relatively thick veneers, 1.5 millimeters or so, and it's an absolutely valid option. Gives a very stiff, very responsive neck, and I would say, yeah, go for it. Okay, so I've just been sent photographs via Leprechaun of an American buttermilk biscuit. To be eaten with sausage patties and great for breakfast or with a meat and 3 meal. Okay. Well, there we go. I have been taught things, and I just spotted another message. What was that? Okay. Mark Jennings was in the chat for all of 10 minutes. Mark sent me some awesome personalized Lego. Apparently Lego themselves will basically customize a Lego minifigure for you, and he made me. It's up at the house at the moment. The kids, it tickled them greatly. Okay. Fluid focuses, you should be safe tapping it in. I've done it hundreds of times. There we go. That is what we are after. Okay, and a super chat. Thank you very much, GIF Broad. It says, hi Ben, I loved the Nebula 2 build. It would be great to see you build a Dreadnought or an OM-sized acoustic. I absolutely will be moving to doing more acoustics. I feel I need a little bit more room, which is something I'm working on. This workshop for molds and leaving things like that to dry, I was tripping over bits and pieces all the time during the Nebula build, and I want to avoid that. Patrick Nesbo says, what's up Ben, what stain would you use for a Sapele body with a Zero Cote top? What do you think is a nice match? I'm thinking amber. I think amber has been my go-to stain for everything recently for some reason. Zero Cote is incredible and doesn't need a stain at all. Sapele, yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with amber. We do a nice cherry red. Which will also work quite well, but I'd almost be tempted to leave it natural. I really would. I need more Zero Cote. There's a guitar being built by Dimitri at headquarters at the moment for himself with a Zero Cote top, and every time I walk past that I just sort of salivate a little bit. Now, Greg Stewart says, have you used potassium permanganate to tint spruce patches? I have not. The first time I did it, I ended up staining it because I didn't know about that trick. But a bunch of people mentioned it in the comments, and I'm like, there is a trick. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I will try it one day for sure. Crundle says, now there's something I'd like to know. What qualities are you looking for when it comes to wood for a neck, body, or a fretboard? Fretboard, it almost doesn't matter. It just needs to be hard enough to reliably withstand, 50 years of use without wearing away to nothing. Although with medium jumbo and jumbo frets, you very rarely touch the fretboard anyway, so it's less of an issue. Neck is to do with good straight grain, relatively tight grain if at all possible, and if not, I would use it in a multi-laminate setting to add extra strength with veneers and glue lines, etc. Every glue line you add to a neck adds strength, specifically if you put a veneer going through proceedings. And then a body just has to be not balsa wood, essentially. I don't particularly like really, really heavy guitars. I don't think anybody really does. So either light wood or wood that has been routed out. I am so sorry. I'm absolutely wiped out. Yeah. It's all to do with, is it easy to work with? Not too soft, not too hard, not too heavy, and is it going to stay together? And that describes probably 80% of wood grown on the planet. Really, you can use pretty much anything that you can get your hands on that is big enough, and you should be able to build an instrument out of it. It just might require a little bit of, experimentation. Terry Love says, are old style hide glues still used by builders? What are the advantages, if any, and disadvantages over white glue? If you watch the Gibson Custom Shop tour, they will talk about how they use hide glue because it doesn't plasticize and create a layer in between the different bits of wood that you're joining, etc., which is just total bullshit. Hide glue is great. I love it. It has disadvantages in that proper hide glue is cooked in the workshop, and it's pellets of hide glue mixed with water in a double boiler, and it's relatively slow to prepare, but it dries relatively very quickly, and you've not got very great open time, which is actually a disadvantage. But yeah, it's thin, it penetrates nicely, it does the job really well, and it is easily reversible. Oh my gosh, you make a mistake with hide glue, you can dial it back straight away if necessary. So from that point of view, it's great, but modern glue technology is incredible, and modern wood glues are really good at what they do. And they have the same reversibility to a certain extent, just using heat and steam, etc. Not quite as easy as hide glue, but not far off. So yes, most people use modern glues. In specifically electric guitar building, definitely. In acoustic guitar building, more people use hide glue than in electric guitar building, but it's still not particularly common, and oftentimes they will use it as a marketing thing, really, in my opinion. And yeah, violin making, many violin makers will use hide glue, and yeah, it's all fun and games. Okay, JS Trucking says, good afternoon. Sorry I'm late. No worries. And welcome to the chaos and the carnage. For some reason I am absolutely wiped out. I don't know. This is what happens when you actually relax on a Sunday. Fedor Sabanovic sent a super chat, but no question. If you have a question, then please put it in the main comments and somebody will point it out to me, I hope. If not, thank you for your support. Sweet Tea Guitars has come in and says, I've got an extra zero coated top and I hate to spoil it, but look in the box. Dude, you don't have to... I really, 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 really appreciate it, but please use your wood yourself as well. I will... Yeah, I will buy myself a zero coated top. Use it, keep it, love it. I feel so guilty. Here we go. JS Trucking says, afternoon Ben, I sent you those pictures from the pictures from the antique store last week, and also just emailed some new vintage tools I picked up there. I will check my email. I've not been computerized this week at all. NTO Steve says, on another popular stream, fish glue is mentioned. Is there a UK brand or equivalent, or just use Titebond? I wouldn't use Titebond, hide glue, or fish glue. Okay, if you're going to use one of these traditional glues, I would not use one manufactured by anybody. I would use the glue pellets that you buy and mix yourself. Seriously. The one time I tried to use hide glue that had been manufactured, it did not. It had none of the benefits of actual real hide glue. So please, that would 100% be my advice there. PS Guardian says, weeks ago you said all Stains shots were about to be released, then recently spoke of a dropship warehouse in the States. Were the other shots abandoned? The other shots have not been abandoned. I have got no idea what has happened to them. They should be on the website now. And I will be finding out on Tuesday if they're not. And why. Now, the labels were proofread and I'm assuming ordered, and that's pretty much the last thing that we've been waiting for. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind, if you're also waiting, send an email through shop@crimsonguitars.com and say, Ben said I should email, I want the new Stunning Stains shots, where the hell are they? Maybe say it a little bit more politely than that if you want. You'll be talking to my mother, so yeah, it'd be nice. Or not. SE Guitars is getting them into the WhatsApp for you. The super chat was just to let you know they were there long. Thank you, JS. Trucking and Guitars. Beth McKenna is saying good night to everybody. Time to cook dinner for Paul Needs. Okay. I think Paul should cook his own dinner and Beth should stay in the live stream, to be honest. Should we take a vote on it? Okay, speaking of, Paul says, I need another neck blank, by the way. Screwed up another by choosing badly and missing out a process. All good lessons, but I'm interested to see what process you missed. I haven't quite forgotten a truss rod before, but I've come close. Gibson state they use Titebond on their website. Gibson used Titebond 50 white glue in the main factory, at least that's what I've been told. They probably use Titebond hide glue, and it wouldn't surprise me in a manufacturing setting. Yes, you would use something manufactured that's quick and easy to apply. You spooge it on, etc. But with mixing it yourself, you have a huge amount of flexibility and the ability to... It is so much better. Like, it's like watching the Lord of the Rings movies. They're incredible, but you read the book and it's incredible. All right, it's that sort of thing. It'll still probably work. It just does not work in the same mind-blowing fashion as actual hide glue. And I've never used fish glue before myself, but hey. Leprechaun says traditional Japanese scabbards are actually glued with just rice. I have heard of rice glue before. Okay. Patrick Nesbitt says, I want to turn my regular boring black Tolex amp head shell and cab chassis white. What are my options? Wrap it in vinyl wrap? I don't think vinyl wrap is potentially hard wearing enough if you're going to be doing anything more than, if you're going to travel with the amp, if you're taking gigging, etc. Tolex is Tolex because Tolex is required. However, you can buy replacement Tolex and do that whole thing yourself, and it's something that I've long wanted to do myself, and it's hard wearing and could be great fun. So if you're going to do it, go all out and do it. And then yeah, I'm sure there are people that would just say, I get a spray paint can and just spray the Tolex and go for it. But there we go. Okay, where are we? 1 hour and 16 minutes. Is a kit guitar, this is Johan van Loopi, is a kit guitar cheaper than finding a good blank timber supplier and starting from scratch? No. Emphatically not. Well, it depends. If you're going to buy an 80 quid kit from some shady Chinese company, then yes. Yes, absolutely. You will spend far more time fixing the issues, probably, than yeah, it wouldn't be good. Chances are. Okay, now that being said, if you buy a good kit, for example, one of the Crimson Guitars kits that we do, you're probably talking £500 or £600, but you will get something that is absolutely perfect in every single way and ready for you to work. Now that is in comparison to spending maybe 50 quid on a top on the wood to make, 50 quid to make a nice top, £40 on a body blank, maybe 30 or 40 pounds on a neck blank, fretboard, etc. It's far cheaper to buy the, hold on. Aha. Okay, sorry. I just saw the bot thing and everybody's already dealt with it. So yeah, it's cheaper to buy the wood, and also more fun. But I would suggest if you are starting out, then buying a good quality kit neck and building the body yourself is a nice way. And then once you've done that, move on to a pre-slotted fretboard from somewhere to save that process and build yourself up slowly. My biggest regret is that I tried to do everything all at once and everything was bad for the first 10 or 20 of my guitars. Or at least not as good as it could be. I wish I'd chosen my battles and said, hey, I'm going to do this and I'm going to learn this and I'm going to learn this well, and then I'm going to move on and build everything else. I've been to far more than I can chew. Okay, so let me check out that WhatsApp from JS Trucking. Here we go. So these are some okay, so yeah, this isn't helping you. There's some beautiful, beautiful vintage tools. Yeah. I love hunting tools. I love hunting tools. Ferid Sabanovic is coming with a super chat. Said, hi Ben, I routed my, and thank you very much, I routed my truss rod channel 0.8 millimeters to the left of the center line. Should I move on or scrap the neck? No and no. I'm afraid of my twist. Don't worry about it. 5-piece laminate. I've prepared the wood for weeks. Don't worry about it. You are talking about less than a millimeter. You've got a multi-laminate neck. The only... put it this way. Okay. You have got 6 strings on your instrument. Doesn't say guitar or bass. Okay. Let's assume you're doing a 6-string guitar here. odds are pretty good, aren't they? The tension on each string is not necessarily exactly accurate or matching across all of the strings. You're not going to create some twist by having a truss rod slightly off center. Really wouldn't worry about it. Seriously don't. Don't scrap it. Don't do anything. The only issue is that visually your truss rod access is going to be slightly off center, and you can fudge that by where you cut it, or that can be fixed. That's not an issue. 0.8 millimeters is nothing to worry about. Now, if the truss rod was not straight down the center line or parallel to the center line, then I would start worrying about it. But even so, if it was centered up at the nut and 0.8 millimeters off down at the dusty end of the fretboard, even that wouldn't make me want to worry about scrapping the neck. I'm talking significantly off parallel. There we go. Okay, Sweet Tea's coming again, says, man, I can't be the peace and love guy and not be willing to share. Very good point. It is the way of things in my world that makes me feel good. Just smile. I'm smiling. You're a good man. Okay. Okay, Paul Needs came back and said, too many mistooks. That is hilarious. I hope you did that on purpose. Too many mistooks. Scarf after the truss rod after cutting the headstock too thin. Oh man, I just had a brain fart that night. Best forgotten apart from not doing things that way again. Okay, so you did the scarf joint after after cutting the truss rod, and the headstock was too thin. So essentially, Paul, seriously, send me some photos. It's probably something that can be recovered from. Send them to stream@crimsonguitars.com. I need to get Tanya access to that email address so she can chase me for answers. But yeah, with the headstock, just a veneer on there to make it a bit thicker is absolutely fine. Hell, you could even just put an extra washer underneath the tuners and build them those a little bit higher, and you could be fine. So yeah, please, be good. Fluid Focus says, Ben, next build suggestion, build your personal dream guitar. That's the problem, it changes every single time. Paul Reed Smith, hollow body, Gibson L5, old style headstock. Yeah, probably one of those two. The aforementioned telly. Lisa's telling me to shut this stream down so I can get enough rest so I can finish the bass tomorrow. I'm 100% finishing the bass tomorrow, and probably going to crack on and do a little bit of work on the baritone as well. So we'll see. Patrick Nesbitt asks if poplar is good for necks. No, I think poplar is not strong enough, and that's not necessarily to do with the hardness of the wood. It's to do with the grain structure. That being said, in a multi-laminate with veneers, with dual action truss rod and carbon fibre stiffening rods, you might be okay. I have seen people make poplar necks and then wrap it in carbon fibre. That works well. Okay. Barry Christian. Corian fretboard. Pros, cons, thoughts? Wouldn't be fun to machine. Cold to the touch, although that's not necessarily an issue. I suspect that it would, in the same way that aluminium does, I suspect that it would distort with temperature changes. So you take it into a warm gigging environment, and you might have issues with the whole setup moving. There's no... I don't know. Yeah. the biggest issue I've got with it is it would be hard to work, and it's not wood. I like wood. That being said, I have seen entire guitars made out of corian in the past, or at least guitar bodies with bought-in necks. So, yeah, why not? Oh, that's a good point, Leprechaun. He says, at Lisa Harshberger, I think that's the first time I've seen you not refer to it as your bass. Lol, that's a good point. I hadn't made that connection there. I am tired. Okay. Okay. Alrighty, everybody. Look, I am running low on energy. So, yeah, if you've got your questions, get them in now, because I am going to call it an evening. Patrick Nesbitt says, suggestion, build the guitar 17-year-old Ben would have wanted but couldn't afford. 17-year-old me. South Africa, music college, studio, embarrassing saxophone moments. American Fender Strat tobacco burst that I had an opportunity to buy, absolutely lusted after the shapes. I remember stroking that damn guitar, could not afford it, couldn't buy it, and I don't think I've actually ever built a Strat on the channel. Like, that could be fun. Yeah, that's hilarious. Actually, I am not known for doing that kind of guitar. Dave T says, what would be a good alternative material other than a wood veneer to use for a shim for a neck? Everywhere are selling large veneer sheets when all I need is a thin-sized piece. Any suggestion? Credit card. A credit card. Okay. Credit card material, sheet plastic, something like that. A business card would be absolutely fine. Leo Fender himself used business card shims in multitudinous amounts of, wow, I've forgotten how to talk. Many guitars. Would be absolutely fine. And yeah, any offcut from any piece of wood could be shaped to the correct wedge. Please excuse me. Okay. Leon says, hi Ben, how do you figure out what the faceting technique is for a PRS pattern thin neck? I can't find any info online. You need to find a drawing of what that is, or go and find a neck and use a one of those radius tools that you push in and it pushes out the things on the back. I don't know what they're called. Somebody will say it in the comments, and actually measure it yourself and draw it out. It might be something that we have. Do you know what? I think you're right. It might be something that we are drawing the plans for. I'm not entirely sure at this point. There are 30 or 40 guitars that we're coming up with. Tutum Carmen says, Ben, you need more coffee. You are absolutely right. You know what? Wow. I haven't had caffeine in so long. I only had 2 coffees today, all day, and 2 cups of tea. I'm a rebel. Okay. Alrighty. Anyway, there we go. I think we're... Barry Christian says try feeler gauges for the shim. Fluid Focus says thumbs up for the business card. Yeah. Barry Christian says he has some really nice deep blue corian to make stuff with. That sounds incredible. I do think that a corian thing could be good. Book suggestion from Apesong. This is The Perfectionists by Simon Winchester. I am currently... What am I currently listening to? I forget the title. I'm currently listening to The Lincoln Highway by Amor Towles. And I don't know how it ended up in my thing. But here we are. I'm enjoying it. Jatner77, what are the advantages of straight string pull at the headstock? It means that you are less likely to have tuning issues, you're less likely to have binding at the nut, you're also less likely to have string breakages, but it is not something that you need to worry about too much. If you have a little bit of the strings going out at an angle, it isn't going to kill things or make any issues. My 3-a-side headstock for years has had perfectly straight string pull and has never looked as nice as I wanted, and I regret that entirely. Jules says, hey Bun. Hey Jules, how you doing? Shape Mouldy Thingy, is that the trade name? That's from Luther for Builds. It really is. Profile Gauge, there we go, thank you. And Lisa, so Spike's Frugal Fixer and Lisa came up with Profile Gauge, as did Alan Wood. You guys are great. And Paul Cook called it a Trogley gauge. William Dodd says, I know everybody will boo me, but I would love to see what kind of a rabbit hole Ben could go down on a lap steel using his own creative shape. I would quite enjoy doing a lap steel at some point. The problem is I would then need to learn how to play it properly. But hey. Okay. And I need to check out Winery Dog's Hot Streak. Okay. Alright everybody, look, I'm gonna say good night, you beautiful people. Thank you very much for your support. Thank you for coming. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your super chats and your questions and your comments. And yeah, and everything. You guys rule. There's one more question, and it's from Insane Aussie. Hold on. Insane Aussie says, Ben, first time putting in floating tremolo bridge studs and I cracked the body. What do I do? It depends on how desperately you cracked it and where. Send us photos to stream@crimsonguitars.com and I'll have a look. Probably just, if they're in place and they're straight and they're square and everything is marked out where it's supposed to be, that would be awesome. To just put super glue in the crack, being careful not to get it into the thread, and then tamp it full of dust and refinish over. You can hide it. It is what it is. But if that isn't going to be doable, then send us a photo. I suppose the other option then is to pull them out and plug full, repair the whole thing, and then re-drill. But if you don't have to re-drill, then don't. You should be good. Now, if you want to pull them out, if they are tubes, find a bolt with the same thread, and then just a long bolt with the same thread. Pull it all the way through the bottom of the thread, the insert, and it'll just slowly push it up. That's by far the easiest way. Good luck. Okay, and finally, there's a super chat here from Discos2 who got in right at the end of the game. Says, missed so much of today's chat. Blessed kids. Planning for my GGBO scratch versus kit. I have a gorgeous but cheap import flame maple Strat neck. I'm so tempted to make China great again. Lol. Fighting talk. You can take a cheap kit guitar and make it great. We've made the video series. Hell, I'm probably going to do it again. If you have skill and time and patience, there is no problem with using a cheap Chinese kit, especially if it's a pretty one. You just need to know that you need to be absolutely on it, because there are potentially issues that you will never see until it becomes a huge thing that just bends the whole guitar. But if you're convinced it's good, and a lot of Chinese stuff is much better than it was even 10 years ago, then go for it and make a good video series about it. And GGBO it is. Alright, everybody. Yes, Disco, you are in right at the end. Okay, everybody, I will see you soon. I will see you soon. Tomorrow, 11 a.m. UK time, I am going to be working on Lisa's base, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for everything, and good night.